helps us continue performing while transforming into an integrated energy company, capitalizing on decades of experience across the value chain, connecting resources to customers. With over 10 years' experience in onshore wind energy, we operate multiple wind farms throughout the US. We also aim to be a leader in offshore wind, leveraging our experience over decades of traditional operations. We are rapidly scaling up our offshore portfolio and already have a pipeline of 5.2 gigawatts net generating capacity. We are accelerating our portfolio growth through Lightsource BP and BP US Solar. Lightsource BP has a growth strategy of developing 25 gigawatts by 2025. Our hydrogen aim is to secure a 10% market share in key geographies by 2030. Both green and blue hydrogen can help decarbonize transport and industry. Advancements in carbon capture and storage provide exciting opportunities and the possibility of deep emissions reduction. BP is reimagining energy, helping the world get to net zero.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Hamburg, or WindEnergy Hamburg, and welcome to the Global Market Theatre on World Bank Offshore Wind Day. We have an awesome program for you guys today. We've got lots of speakers throughout the course of the day. We're having a CEO panel immediately after the welcome session, or the opening session, and then we hand over the stage to the World Bank Group, where they'll have a presentation of a whole lot of different markets that the World Bank is conducting a study tour here at the moment, and they're going to present to you what's happening in each of these markets. And then we'll round out the day with a special display from the Global Wind Energy Council Ambassador, kite surfer champion, Lewis Cratham, and then we'll also have a game changer session on hydrogen. My name's Stuart Mullen. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Global Wind Energy Council. And on behalf of GWEC, we'd like to welcome you here today. Our first speaker today is the CEO of the Global Wind Energy Council. So could you put your hands together, please, for Mr. Ben Backel. Ben.
Good morning, everyone. It's really great to be here. We're back in the real world.
Hey.
Can we cope with it? Are we ready for the real world? I think we are. It's been 3 years, 4 years actually, since we've been at this event. 4 years of barking at each other across the flat Zoom screens, but nonetheless 4 years where we've actually managed to get quite a lot of work done. But I'm hoping now we can also enjoy ourselves a little bit and have some real world interaction, because that's really what this is all about and what it's all going to be about in the coming years. Thank you very, very much to our partners, our sponsor for Day One BP. You'll hear from Matthias in a second. And thank you to the World Bank Group, who are organising their study tour, which GWEC has been partnering with. It's really, really exciting. We have delegates here from all around the world, from Latin America, Brazil, from California, a big delegation from Turkey, from parts of Southeast Asia, from Vietnam, from Africa, South Africa. I mean, really, the level of interest is fantastic. And I think what this is all about is, on one level, the world has come so far since we were last here 4 years ago. This is not about ambition or targets anymore. I remember 10 years ago, it was all about coming to conferences every year and asking governments for slightly higher targets. I mean, now we have an incredible level of ambition, both for onshore and offshore wind. And I'll give you an example. I mean, we last year in September, we presented a compact to the United Nations around offshore wind, and it was 380 gigawatts by 2030. And at the time, we'd done it with Irina and some partners. At the time, we thought, maybe this is pushing it a little bit too far. Now, only a year after that, if you go around and count the pledges from governments that have been made since COP26, it actually adds up to something like 370 gigawatts by the end of 2030. And that's without taking into account some of the very recent policy statements like the Baltic Sea Declaration and others that have happened in the last couple of months. Last week I was in New York and we launched the Global Offshore Wind Alliance with a number of countries, with the US and Denmark and many other countries on the High Line at New York during New York Climate Week. And we've been working with a group of around 15 or more countries to put together a high-level alliance which will establish ambition, but which will also act as a mechanism for emerging markets to come on and interact with mature markets and help each other to really speed up implementation. And for us at GWEC now, it's all about implementation. We are in a situation where we have something I call target inflation. So the targets get bigger and bigger and are often put into 5 years' time or 10 years' time. What we need is action right now on the ground, and we need to fix the things that are preventing us to deploy at the speed we need to right now. I mean, we really do not have any more time. The targets are huge. We're all on the same page between the IEA and IRENA and most of the world governments. What we really need to do now is go out and build and implement and also create everything that we need around wind and offshore wind. We need grid infrastructure. We need a huge workforce. Tomorrow with our friends at Global Wind Organization, we're going to be launching a report that says we need something like 500,000 additional wind energy technicians just by 2026. So there's a whole industry to be built here, and the benefits and the impact of that will be felt progressively as we actually get on with this and actually start to influence. So we're in a really exciting period. We've got everything to win here. We've got the political momentum in our sails, and we've got this incredibly pressing need now with very high energy prices that have come from fossil fuel volatility. We need to help people and society get through this energy crisis and out to the other side to a cleaner, more sustainable, fairer, more equitable energy system. And I personally have every confidence we can do that. This is why we're bringing people together at the Global Markets Theatre, is to work together and collaborate together. So I'm really looking forward to the discussions this week and to interacting with all of you in the real world. And let's get this done together. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ben. And actually, what Ben said, this is going to be a theme for the Global Market Theatre all week. We're not about kicking the can down the road. It's about here and now. So every session that we're going to have here at the Global Market Theatre will actually focus on this and have now as an imperative. I'd like to welcome to the stage now Mark Laybourne, the Offshore Wind Program Lead for the World Bank Group, and also Sean Whitaker, the Principal Energy Renewable Specialist of the International Finance Corporation. Sean and Mark, welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Stuart. Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Thanks. Thank you, Stuart. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Laybourne. I co-lead the Offshore Wind Program. My co-lead here.
I'm Sean Whitaker with the International Finance Corporation and co-leading the Offshore Wind Development Program with Mark.
And we started this program in 2019. We saw the massive success of offshore wind in established markets, Northern Europe, and realized that this was the time to start taking offshore wind to emerging markets, recognizing their growing power needs and need to decarbonize. And there's a huge potential out there. And we started this program by looking at all of the resource potential around the world, identified 56 different countries, and provided that resource mapping to give our countries an understanding of the opportunity that they had.
And since then, we've been working on a series of roadmaps and engagements with the countries in order to be able to accelerate the time for them to see offshore wind on their shores. We've developed 4 roadmaps so far. So in Vietnam, Philippines, Colombia, and Azerbaijan. And we're working on 5 more roadmaps now. And then also working in engagements with governments and really just trying to get into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to bring offshore wind into these markets sooner rather than later.
And today, if you're aware, we've got a big delegation of 15 different countries that we brought to around Netherlands, now in Germany, and then tomorrow we're going off to Denmark. This study tour comprises about 50 different delegates. Encourage you to come and meet them and understand more about what they're trying to do, why they're doing offshore wind, and what problems that they have. And this afternoon, we'll have 3 sessions on this stage, split into different regions. So you'll be able to understand more from each of those delegates, have a chance to ask questions, and we'll have the delegates at the networking reception a bit later on today.
And we really do encourage you to engage with these delegates. It's remarkable to think of the growth that's happening in these markets now. 3 years ago, when we first started the program, in Brazil, there was about 5 gigawatts of projects that were in application to IBAMA. Now there's 169 gigawatts of projects that are in application. You look in Azerbaijan, in Colombia, in the Philippines, where there is like almost 30 gigawatts of projects that have applied for service contracts. These are the markets that are growing now, and they're the markets that are going to represent really the next wave for offshore wind. So we encourage you to engage with the delegates. We've got the high-level folks from ministries of energy, from the regulators, from the various renewable agencies. Engage with them, understand what their markets are, provide feedback. These are the discussions that are ultimately going to provide the foundation for growth of offshore wind in emerging markets.
Just like to wrap up by saying thanks very much to GWEC and the team for their support. We work very closely with GWEC to bring in the industry to meet and spend time with our delegates, and also to understand what the industry is thinking about emerging markets and how they're going to help to deliver it. Because whilst we can give a lot of support to the governments, and the governments can do the work to set the regulatory frameworks and all the things that need to be in place for offshore wind, is ultimately you as the industry that needs to come along and deliver it. And that framework needs to be in place in a suitable way for you to be happy to invest. So thanks again to GWEC and the team. Looking forward to interacting with you all today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark and Sean. Mark and Sean will be moderating panels later today for those World Bank delegations. The Global Wind Energy Council is extremely grateful for BP for their sponsorship of today's program. It's without organisations like BP that we can actually help put these shows together. And so I'd like to welcome to the stage the SVP of Offshore Wind at BP, a person who I've actually worked with before in many years ago when I was starting out in the industry in Siemens Gamesa or Siemens Wind Power back in the day, a stalwart of offshore wind, Matthias Balsenwein. Matthias, welcome to the stage.
Thanks, Stuart. Very, very nice words. Thanks everybody for having me, and thanks for being here today. I must say it's fantastic to be here today, not only because we can come together again in person, in real life. It's, I think, priceless. It's great. It's also, I had a terrible journey. I just made it here on time. Luggage is lost, and yeah, I came here 5 minutes ago, but you know what? We can travel again, we can be here again, so I don't complain. I really enjoy it, almost. Now, going into it, I recently joined BP only. My name is Matthias Balsenwein. I'm responsible for offshore wind at BP. I'm new to BP, but I'm not new to offshore wind. I worked with 2 other industry leaders before, and I spent a lot of time here in Hamburg, so I'm really also happy to be back in Hamburg. City which I was proud to call my home. It's one of the homes of offshore wind. I will get into that in the keynote speech later. Yeah, WindEnergy Europe is a must-attend event in the calendar. I appreciate the opportunity given to us to be here today. I'd like to acknowledge your remarks, Mark, Sean, Ben. Very much agree to that. We are now into action mode. We need to make it happen. At the same time, growing into very new areas. The countries need to get set. We want a world that runs on secure, affordable, and low carbon energy. That's why we as BP invest a lot now. We want to accelerate the energy transition. We think we are uniquely positioned for that. We invest especially also into renewables. In offshore wind, we're already active now in 2 core markets, UK and US. We have a deep knowledge of the energy supply chain and more than a decade experience in onshore wind already. We saw about Lightsource BP in the beginning. We want to further accelerate this growth, which is so much needed in the world. It will take many, many brilliant companies, green startups. It will also take scale and expertise of multinational companies to become green in the future, and also the supply chain. It will take efforts of governments and communities. And so it's really great we come here together. We spend time together, speak with a strong voice as an industry, and that's why it's important we're here in Hamburg. I will say a lot more later in the keynote. Thanks a lot for listening for now. Looking forward to speaking with all you. And I think what Sean and Mark said, I would also like to say that we have a big BP booth here, and there's people from the different areas, supply chain, HR available, and we have a lot of job openings as well. So please join us and visit our booth. Yeah, I'll leave it here, and I see you in a second back on stage. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Matthias. Always good to know that there's work going in offshore wind, and this is going to be one of the themes for the conference as well. I think that the GWO report will talk about jobs numbers tomorrow. It's an absolute pleasure for the Global Wind Energy Council to be able to introduce Mr. Sievert Grunder, who's the Vice Chair of the California Energy Commission. California has brought a large delegation to WindEnergy Hamburg, and so I'd like to hand over to Mr. Grunder to speak and let us know what's happening in California. Please make him welcome.
Right. Good morning, everybody. It's an absolute delight to be here from California. What an amazing atmosphere. I'm just really excited to meet a lot of you. We have been here for about 10 days now, touring Denmark, Aberdeen, Scotland, and really trying to learn what this part of the world has been up to in terms of offshore wind, and really learning from you all as we embark on our own journey in really becoming hopefully a global lead on deep water floating offshore wind. I want to just start by just introducing our delegation. We had a pretty big delegation coming here. I'm from California Energy Commission. I'm the vice chair. The commission is tasked with developing the policy and planning for state of California. But we also have the Lieutenant Governor's office here, as well as a number of state agencies who are both a part of procuring the offshore wind, but also permitting the development of that. We also have colleagues who are in labor and environmental justice, and most of all, are tribal nations in California. So California is really on an ambitious journey in terms of addressing climate change. We have a mandated goal for carbon neutrality no longer or no later than 2045. Just to give you a context, we had about 40 million people in California. It's the 5th largest economy. We have a lot of opportunity, but we're also home for more than 100 federally recognized tribal nations in California. So we have a mini EU in California that we have to work through as we develop our own goals and implement our work. An important element of our carbon neutrality is electrification. Large swaths of California economy is aimed at electrification, including light duty transportation, buildings, but any other pieces of other heavy industry that could be electrified. With that comes the clean molecules. So given that we have electrification of a core strategy, it becomes extremely important that our energy is clean, reliable, but also safe and affordable and equitable. So that's what we're planning to do. So to just face some high-level goals, we have a goal for 100% clean electricity by 2045. On the path there, it's 90% by 2035 and 95% by 2040. Also want to highlight the offshore wind goals. As we think through the electricity planning, one of the core things that we've learned through our modeling is that we need diversity of resources, but also geography. So that's what we are working on. So with that, offshore wind becomes a very important element. We have 2 to 5 gigawatts of target by 2030 and up to 25, or at least 25 by 2045. So California has been on this path, for a number of years now, starting with our renewable portfolio standard, which really pushed solar and wind in California. As you look there in 2013, we were roughly 22% renewables, a pretty good portfolio of nuclear and large hydro. But as we moved forward, we have retired some of our nuclear assets, and we are scheduled to retire our last nuclear power plant in the next 5 years or so. So we are almost at 59% today in terms of zero carbon resources, and we need to get to at least 90% by 2035. Okay, so just this is a year ago. So in the energy world, most of you know, a year is like stale, very stale in the work that we do. So this was done a year ago in terms of understanding how much build we need to have in California. We're talking about tripling or quadrupling the grid in California in terms of the nameplate capacity. So there you see in the modeling, we only accounted for 10 gigs of offshore wind as kind of an initial input, and all 10 gigs of offshore wind was picked up in our modeling as a core need for both reliability, but also cost effectiveness. As you also see there, there's a large amount of storage. There's almost 60 gigs of storage that California has to push over the last couple of years. We went 20-fold in our storage from 200 megawatts to 4,000 megawatts this year. So it's rapidly growing. We're on a path to really accelerating our clean energy deployment. So just wanted to set the context, though, in terms of energy transition. Europe obviously is having the energy transition through the lens of energy security. In California, it's extremely important for us to look at it through the lens of energy equity. As you see here, we have about 30 to 40 megawatts of fossil generation still in California, and majority of that fossil generation is set in disadvantaged communities or low-income communities. So it's a priority in California to really retire them as quickly as possible. If we look at just the greenhouse gas emissions and allow for a small amount of emissions to be on the grid, almost 85% of our fossil generation will stay online through 2045. So it's important for us to think about a non-combustion fossil generation as we move forward, and that's what we are working on. Okay, as we move towards this, in California, climate change is not anymore a question, it's a reality. For the last several years, we've been really struggling with climate change. 3 core issues that we're facing: it's extreme heat. The last 2020, we've experienced about a 1 in 70-year heat wave. And this year, we've also experienced a similar heat wave in September. On the top of that, we are going into extended drought. So our hydro fleet has been cut down by half, and also wildfire risk. For example, last year on July 19th, we had a fire knockout 4,000 megawatts of transition coming into California in an instant. And we rely on a large amount of imports coming into California from our neighbors to really keep the grid reliable. So it becomes important. So what I want to help you all focus is on the chart. That's a typical September load in California. What we anticipated for this September on a median was approximately 44,000 megawatts of peak load on our CAISO system. We experienced a 53,000. That's a 7,000 megawatt departure from what we were anticipating. And as you see there, the red line, that red line was when we had to send an amber alert to 22 million Californians to turn off as much as they can turn off. So you see the nosedive of load there, which helped us keep the lights on. But that's real. Climate change is real in California. Reliability is an important element as we continue to electrify our state. Okay, so coming to offshore wind, the governor of California has been absolutely clear that offshore wind is a very important part of our journey. We have one of the best wind of the coast of California. And he requested the Energy Commission, which has the planning authority to really look at least 20 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2045. So he has been really advocating for developing the offshore wind industry in California. So just looking at high-level benefits, why we're doing this in California. Obviously, I talked about equity. As we think through the gas fleet in California, the fossil generation, it's primarily used for the ramping needs in the afternoon. So towards the late afternoon, as the air conditionings are still there, but our solar generation nosedives, we have approximately 13,000 megawatts that we have to ramp up in about 3 hours. And we can't really do that without fossil generation today. But offshore wind really complements that generation curve. So we think it's an important element of our portfolio. We're also running out of land in terms of where you want to put solar panels and wind on land. So we need to make sure, if we are making sure that we are working through the environmental impacts of a large-scale solar build in California, we do not want to build another 100, 200 megawatts of solar, gigawatts of solar on land. So it's important that we diversify our geographical nature of the resources we have. And also, it's really important that it could stimulate an economic development in California. Our labor team, Jeff is here for those of you who want to chat with him. It's a humongous opportunity for California to really lead the way, not only for the West Coast, but hopefully for the globe in terms of floating offshore wind. Just a high-level pieces of what we're planning to do. The Assembly Bill 525 really kind of set the target to establish a framework for California offshore wind. There are some key elements. As I mentioned, we have a 2 to 5 gigawatt goal by 2030 and minimum of 25 gigawatts by 2045. That's pretty ambitious, given that we are looking at 20 to 30 mile offshore, where we're looking at about 1,000-meter depth. So it's a huge challenge technically, but we know the industry is up to it, and we're looking to really partner with all of you to advance those goals. Some important deadlines, we have a strategic plan that's coming out. The California Energy Commission has the mandate to develop the strategic plan, which identifies the sea space, but also transmission planning and permitting, which is extremely important given the beautiful coastline we have in California and preserving the coast. Right. The last piece, proposed California. So we have the Bureau of Ocean Management, the BOEM, which is a federal agency which is really responsible for helping us develop these leases, 3 nautical miles beyond the shore in California. So we are on track to have approximately 4.6 gigs of capacity within the zones that are currently identified by OM for leasing later this year. So we look forward to working with a number of you. There's an excellent opportunity for California. Since COP26, we had 3 delegations come to California and really learn from all of you. As our governor says, we can't do this alone. This is about collaboration and implementation and cooperation. So we're here to really develop the network, relationships, and the goodwill to continue moving the world to a better place. Thank you so much, all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gunda. And that wraps up the opening session. We're going to have a very short 1 to 2 minute break so we can just get some more chairs on the stage, and then we'll move straight into the CEO panel. So please don't go anywhere. We'll be back in about two minutes.
BP is changing from international oil company to integrated energy company. We aim to dramatically reduce carbon in our operations and production and grow new low-carbon businesses, products, and services. Our ambition to become a net zero company by 2050 or sooner, and to help the world get to net zero. We are partnering with countries, cities, and industries as we navigate the energy transition, delivering integrated solutions for customers, with a focus on safety and operational reliability, generating value through BP's broad capabilities. Here's how we are growing our gas and low-carbon energy business. Our resilient hydrocarbons business helps us continue performing while transforming into an integrated energy company, capitalizing on decades of experience across the value chain, connecting resources to customers. With over 10 years' experience in onshore wind energy, we operate multiple wind farms throughout the US. We also aim to be a leader in offshore wind, leveraging our experience over decades of traditional operations. We are rapidly scaling up our offshore portfolio and already have a pipeline of 5.2 gigawatts net generating capacity. We are accelerating our portfolio growth through Lightsource BP and BP US Solar. Lightsource BP has a growth strategy of developing 25 gigawatts by 2025.